All right, Kurt, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Um, to start off, I wonder, so we met in the fall of 2023 before the election, and a lot has transpired since then. It was a fundraiser for Nathan Hochman, who wound up winning, like a California GOP fundraiser. But since then, Trump has obviously won the election. It took a Herculean effort from this MAGA coalition, from all sorts of different people, to fight the left and avoid basically what I view as communism. And now it seems not only do you have to fight the left, but there's a division within MAGA. So I wonder how you see the MAGA landscape. If it's the dividing line seems to be over Israel and the Iran war. Some people call it America first versus MAGA. So how do you see if this is real, or how do you see a division in MAGA?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised to see a division. It's a coalition and a new one, and it's a bunch of people with very different interests. You have regular conservatives like me. You have kind of populist types. There are a few of those. You have some libertarian types. You have the MAGA, Maha moms. You have the podcast bros. You have the crypto tech guys. It's a different coalition than the one that Republicans are used to, and it was enough to win the election. But every coalition has growing pains, and almost by definition, when coalition problems are and successes in building coalitions are what make elections happen. So I'm not shocked by it. We don't agree on everything, and we're fairly new. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of disagreements. I think things like the Iran war and Israel have given a very a small part of our coalition heartburn. I'm not sure why. I think some of them have gone insane. I think some of them are outright evil, but enough about Candace Owens. I don't think, look, most people in our coalition want to beat the living snot out of the Iranians. And their beef with Israel is it's been far too nice to these semi-human, pagan terrorist scumbags. If you think Gaza looked bad when the Israelis did it, man, give me command, and they will use my name to scare children to the 100th generation. But so I'm not. I guess the bottom line is I'm not freaking out about a very normal process of people jockeying for power. And by the way, I don't think some of these people particularly hate Israel or love Iran. I think they find it a way to differentiate themselves within the coalition and to get power. You can now get power being much more niche and bespoke than before. It's kind of like late night TV. It used to be Carson and everybody watched Carson. But now you can, get millions of dollars a year and get 2% of the audience. And there's 20 of those guys. So,
Right.
the internet and the changes to technology have made it easy to stake out your own little tiny claim. The number of people who have heard of Alex Jones, for instance, even as opposed to the number who actually care about what Alex Jones says, is minuscule. If we went out in public and encountered 100 regular people on the street, maybe 5 would know who he is, and we might find 1 who ever listens to him. And yet he's got this outsized influence within the sphere simply as an effect of social media. So we're navigating kind of new and ancient terrain here. The ancient terrain being you build coalitions. We're just having coalition problems. Democrats are having coalition problems, different ones. And let's see who has fewer problems at the end.
Yeah. Do you think that for example, the podcast faction has electoral juice and can actually hurt the Republican Party in the midterms?
I think that will be minimal. They helped inform a lot of young men who stayed out of things before because politics just wasn't cool. And then, oh, well, Trump seems okay. My favorite podcast bro likes him. But, you know, I don't know how much influence these guys have. I used to listen to Tucker and Megyn Kelly. And, you know, sometimes they'd say things that were interesting or intriguing. But when they didn't, I didn't care. It was like, nah, that's stupid. I don't care. And I think most people are like that. I don't think most people are sheep, including the podcast types. I mean, there are sheep out there. You know, there are a lot of idiots out there. If there weren't, Nick Fuentes wouldn't have an audience. But I don't. The idea that anybody has command of a huge proportion of this coalition, including Trump, is kind of silly. I like Trump a lot, but if Trump does something I don't like, I'm not going to necessarily go along with it. I might make a tactical decision that this isn't an issue to fight over, but because Trump says something itself doesn't necessarily mean people are going to immediately agree. The idea that there's a Trump cult is a misunderstanding of the relationship between Donald Trump and the movement for which he is an avatar rather than a leader. And the last thing I want to do is disabuse my political enemies of their misunderstanding. I would much rather the enemy attack the position they think I'm in rather than the one that I actually am in. So it's not my job to come out here and go, oh, no, you leftists don't get it. You know, right. It's like, you know, on social media, you know, you're on X and somebody's going, oh, well, you don't really understand. See, I'm like, no. Your job's not to help them. That's not your job. Don't correct stupid people. Let them be stupid and then use it as a suppository.
Yeah. I guess the thing I find concerning and weird is within this coalition, when there's disagreement on policy, I think I'm in the same camp as you. I don't agree with everything, but it's not a lot of these things aren't deal breakers for me.
Yeah.
But what you see are like hysterical acting out, like in the case of Tucker, this like hysterical, I'm taking my toys and going home.
Yeah.
You see that with him, the libertarians, I would put in that.
Oh, libertarians. That's an ideology of children. The dummy who used to come to your dorm room at midnight with a bong and he wants to start talking about his theories and you're like, I just want to go to sleep. You're boring me. Look, I've met Tucker. I've been on his shows a couple times. I think he's a very intelligent guy. I think he's had some sort of mental breakdown.
You do.
The bizarre nature of a lot of what he's into now is so incoherent. I don't understand how you can get there. The only way, you either get someplace through logic, through malice, or insanity. He doesn't strike me as malicious. He strikes me as crazy. He certainly didn't get to those points rationally. I mean, his bizarre 180-degree turn on Islam, it's just weird. And he's now basically interviewing the same people all the time, none of whom challenge him. Well, I mean, I guess Ted Cruz challenged him a little bit. But someone like Candace Owens, I think she was always a straight up grifter. I think she does exploit her people. And I don't think anybody serious pays attention to her. But, you know, unserious people's money can buy you stuff just as well as serious people.
Yeah.
You know, P.T. Barnum, you know, has now she's an attractive black woman on podcasts. Okay.
Yeah, you can be a carnival barker
Yeah.
in this new landscape. The thing I find strange about Tucker is someone like I listen a lot to Victor Davis Hanson, and I
Yeah.
know Tucker had a relationship with him,
Yeah.
or how it's the lack of humility that I find strange when there's so few people that have knowledge and wisdom to impart to the culture like Victor Davis Hanson, and then the sort of the gall to go out there with that knowledge and take a point of view. It's so bizarre.
Well, that's why I think it's insane, because it doesn't add up. I don't see how you get from A to B to crazy for Tucker.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't think he's an evil guy. I think he's just nuts. I think Nick Fuentes is an evil guy. Um, I think I think Alex Jones is a stupid guy. Um, you know, you can have people who can say sensible things and who are entertaining. Rush Limbaugh, but you know, you can also be entertaining yet kind of factually void.
right.
I think there was also, and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene epitomizes it. I think there are a lot of people who expected power. I expected they expected she thought she was going to run for Senate in Georgia, and of course Trump, because he's not an idiot, he's a very good politician, said you're not going to win. I'm not going to support you. That's stupid and crazy. Don't do that. And she got mad. Somebody said no to her. I was there. I was part of this. I deserve my power. Do you? Really? No, I don't think so. And she's desperately clinging. She's about 35 minutes into Marshall McLuhan's 15 minutes of fame right about now. And I literally, every time I see her appear, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah,
There was a great Simpsons where he bowls a perfect game, and the whole show's about how he milks his fame from it for like 30 minutes. And he walks on stage with Krusty the Clown and says, "Did someone say a perfect game?" And it's just so pathetic. It's hilarious what he does. It's pathetic when somebody does it in real life.
yeah. I see a lot of the social media stuff as basically like acting out attention seeking.
Yeah.
Overall.
Oh yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's revolutionary. It's very interesting. Today I was sitting there going down the line, and I found a lawyer said something I thought was interesting about the Supreme Court. So I looked into his timeline. He said lots of interesting things. So I'm going to follow him. You can curate interesting people, but you can also curate entertaining people. I think you should have a mix of both. I mean, I'm not against I was a stand-up comic, for God's sake. I'm not against entertaining. I'm against being stupid.
Yeah. Twitter is like I feel like you get both the Real Housewives portion of the brain, and then also really smart, interesting people, like all in one kind of mix.
Well, look, you just got to be smart about it. It's yet another resource. If you go to a library, 95% of the books are going to be crap, right? Oh, it's a library. Yeah. And 95% of it's crap. 95% of everything's crap. I mean, go through Netflix and try and find something to watch, right? 95% of stuff is crap. And part of being an adult is learning to discern between stuff that's crap. And I'm not like against crap in the sense that sometimes I just want to watch a funny show. But you got to know the difference.
Do you think young people possess the ability to discern with the way they've been raised and, cognitive function?
I think they have the capability, whether they have the training or not. First of all, young people are always drawn to stupid things by virtue of being young people. You know, I was watching that Hassan Piker guy. You know him, that idiot,
Oh yeah.
the champagne socialist, and he was talking about, oh, I think to these giggling, chubby New York Times Gen Z reporters who just thought he was dreamy. It's just embarrassing. There's a whole dynamic there. And he was saying, well, you know, I think it's great to go in and steal from a store and stuff. And they're like, ah. And I'm like, does Abby Hoffman know you stole his bit? I mean, really, you know, I mean, he's not inventing anything new. I just thought it was kind of funny. These, hired by the New York Times, which we're supposed to have respect for because of its prestige and prestigiousness, and they can't make that absolutely clear connection that this is, you know, socialist charlatanism to Electric Boogaloo. It's been done, and they don't know it.
Yeah. The objection I have to characters like him is that he's not an American.
Well, that's true.
He's an anchor baby, and he's actually Turkish. And one of the things, I was reading the chapter of your book last night about the fall of civilizations, and you explain basically like the fall of the Roman Empire. And I also just read this book by this guy called Benedict Beckheld on oikophobia, which is like a fear and hatred of one's own culture, which arises when you don't have a clear foe. And over time, you start looking inward. And one of the things that happened in the Roman Senate is that they had foreigners conscripted into their army, foreigners in the culture. So I actually lived in Turkey, so I know who Hassan Piker is. Like, I know who that person is. He's a trust fund kid. He's doing a bit, as you said.
Yeah, he is. When he started talking about social murder, you know, I'm like, you gonna go out and kill somebody? You gonna come kill me? You go roll that dice, or do you expect somebody else to do it for you? Because I don't think you're gonna do it. And I also don't think the United States is kind of like a lot of these other countries that fell to communists. Because I got more guns within 15 feet of me than the entire civilian population of Great Britain. And I'm one dude. And I'm here in Texas. And I'll bet this whole street, oh God. It's a pose. He's cosplaying Che.
Exactly.
Except he pretends to like homosexuals. Che murdered them.
Kurt, one of the things that you often post or posted during the election was, I just remember this, you would post all the time, buy guns and ammunition to lawfully defend yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of the revolutionary things about the United States is that the people have, or the government does not have a monopoly of violence, monopoly on violence. It has organizations that are capable of a great deal of violence. I was in the Army for 27 years. I'm familiar with that. But even if I was in command of all our military forces, probably add up to about 3 million, throw in 2 million cops, right? Paramilitaries. That's 500,000 guys under arms. I'm fighting 120 million citizens with weapons. Okay, the numbers don't work for tyranny in the United States, but it only doesn't work if normal Americans understand their vital role. And a vital role is this hard final line of defense against tyranny, which Britain doesn't have. You can get arrested for in Great Britain, the cradle of democracy. Well, a recent democracy, not like Athens, but you know what I'm saying. You could be arrested for saying things. I don't think foreigners should come here illegally. I think they should be locked up and sent back to their country. No, off to jail with you. You could go to jail for that. That is so mind-bogglingly insane to me and intolerable. But what are they going to do about it? What are the individual guys in Britain going to do at the end of the day when their nanny state dictatorship fully establishes itself? They're not going to do anything. They can't. Look at Iran. I wrote about it in Town Hall Monday. There's 90 million people in Iran. There's about 10% of them are these hardcore pagan fanatics. They're the only ones with guns. They've gone out and murdered 45,000 people. No guns. You're at the mercy of whoever has them. I don't propose to ever be at anybody's mercy. Ever. And one of the questions for Hassan Piker is, well, you guys, you seem pretty sure of this communist thing. Are you willing to die to enslave me? Because I'm willing to kill and to die to keep that from happening. No question for me. But Hassan, what's the name of the guy you're going to get to come make me do something? What's the guy whose life is less important to him than pleasing you by making me go do something? Because that's what the question is, thanks to the Second Amendment. You know, Second Amendment's a beautiful thing because at the end of the day, if things get really, really bad, you know, people have to make very clear choices. You know, how important is imposing tyranny to you? Because I know how important being a free American citizen is to me.
It's interesting. This crystallized for me during COVID. I think a lot of liberals think that we're post-tyranny and are unaware that they're imposing tyranny themselves. But during the lockdown, that's when I bought guns.
Yeah.
Because I learned about this and then I saw it, was like, oh, these people will just roll over. Like, everyone needs to be armed. Everybody.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the calculus of politicians. It's like, fuck, there are 400 million guns in this country. Like, we can only push it so far. It's an absolute necessity. Yeah.
I mean, and of course, the point of shooting is very far down the road. Although in obviously the Civil War, I don't think a second Civil War, and I've written books about that. I got a American Apocalypse, Second Civil Wars, which I wrote last year. I think it looks very different. Not grand armies marching across the landscape, but rather more like what I saw, the aftermath of in Kosovo, which is small groups of people killing each other. But yeah, it's right now. It is an extreme answer. An extreme. Right now, we have a semi-functioning electoral system, a semi-functioning court system. Are there problems with both? Yes. Is it to the point where you have no practical means of having your voice heard or your rights protected? Well, we're not there yet. And that's when you stop doing political processes and violence becomes an option. So we're very far from that. But I think it's instructive for everybody in government to know that that's out there, because there are no norms anymore. My view of norms and related principles, I'm not going to just bother making the air quotes every time I say them, is that they exist solely to protect the establishment ruling class, if you will, from any kind of challenge. Well, you can't say these things. They're mean. You've got to stop. They're against the norms. You're violating the norms by saying these things and having these ideas and attempting to open the Overton window. So the norms protect them. I've noticed the norms don't seem to protect us. If you're a conservative, try and avail yourself of the norms. You know, everything from civility to due process, the right to free speech. It's not a norm if it only applies to protect one group. Then it's just a weapon. So that's why I have little use for the norms, because it's all a lie and a scam. I have yet to see any leftist defend my right to speak freely. Ever. No norm.
On the same subject, do you think the filibuster should be done away with?
I can see both ways. I am less certain that the Democrats will get rid of the filibuster for a couple reasons. First of all, a senator's power is his vote. If you get rid of the filibuster, you're kind of decreasing some of their power. You're also making them take positions on things that maybe they don't want to. The filibuster protects the party that, you know, there's something popular being defeated, right? You don't want to actually get to the point where your vote really matters. I think that, first of all, I think a lot of the Democrats had a chance with Sinema and Manchin to avoid the filibuster voting to keep the filibuster, because those two did it for them. I think when they have I think they know the damage it would do to the Senate. I think they know the damage it will do to the power of individual senators without a filibuster. I mean, anytime you make it easier to pass something, you decrease the power of each individual. And the only way that, unless you have like an overwhelming majority, and then you can just kind of get lost in the majority. So I think I think they might pass limited filibuster reform, but there's no real, I don't know. I don't think you can do it without destroying the whole filibuster. Because you can't say, well, we're only going to lift the filibuster for abortion stuff, but not anything else. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I'll just put my national concealed carry idea over here on the side because you've created an arbitrary limit that benefits you and penalizes me, which I'm expected to honor for reasons. I would prefer. I would prefer to conserve the tradition. I don't know how long that's going to last. If they did lift the filibuster and they did start doing things like packing the cord and bringing in these weird new states, well, I think we're a lot further down the road to a national divorce. Then it just kind of becomes moot. I mean, there's a certain point. You know, people are saying it a lot, and I kind of agree. You know, you look at these district courts with these idiotic rulings, and I was a lawyer for 30 years, argued at Ninth Circuit and stuff. And a lot of these district court stuff is just flat out political nonsense. They're not ruling on the law; they're ruling on their policy preference. Why do we need a super legislature that we can't vote out of office? Why do we need that? Article 3, eventually somebody's going to go, you know, I know you've said that we don't, now you've changed it so we don't have the right to keep and bear arms, but I'm not going to do that here in Texas. In Texas, you're not going to enforce that federal law. We're just not going to let you. Your move. You know, your move. And then it becomes, once again, well, gosh, you know, how important it is to me to enforce this law versus how important it is to the people who don't want it enforced.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other interesting things is how the left has so completely villainized federal law enforcement. The same people they're expecting to go enforce their will down the road.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Steyer has just popped up here in California as a candidate who is running on locking up ICE agents.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Again, do you want to be the guy who goes and grabs an ICE agent? Because are you the California highway patrolman? I guess. Tom's like, okay, go arrest those ICE agents. Oh, I'm going to go commit a federal crime you can't pardon me for? I mean, they might shoot me. And then what are you going to do? Charge the guy who shot me? Don't help me. Yeah, I mean, see, the problem is we have a system and everybody's got to do their part in it. But we have a whole political party that kind of wants to opt out of the obligations while taking all the benefits, while demanding we bear the obligations and take none of the benefits. And you can't, a system can't function unless all its parts function correctly. It's like chivalry, right? You're not supposed to hit a lady. But you see all these videos of girls running up and punching guys, and slapping, and then the guy knocks them on their ass. And you're supposed to go, oh, that's horrible. I'm like, wait a minute. Part of chivalry is that women, part of the part of chivalry where you don't hit women is women don't engage in combat. They're outside of combat. Guys, they're in the game. Open season. But women aren't because they don't participate in combat. Well, I'd like to participate in combat and also not have you defend yourself. It doesn't sound like a good deal to me. It's not a real shock that people don't leap to embrace that offer. Systems only work when all the parts of the system are working. And yeah, they can clank and break down a little bit. But when you have systematic breakdowns, like, you get to elect a president, but he doesn't actually get to do anything, because everything he does is by nature illegal and wrong. Like, the president I liked could invite, a few 100,000 illegal aliens here on his, and just say, hey, I'm letting you stay. But the new one can't undo that. See, we have the power to do, but you don't have the power to undo.
Right.
How you liking your democracy?
Kurt, I want to cover one more subject before we wrap up, which is foreign policy and Iran. You're kind of uniquely positioned in that you're a veteran, you're a conservative, like a MAGA OG. So you really can't, it's very difficult to criticize a person like you. And you've been very pro-Israel.
I haven't stopped anybody.
And pro Iran intervention. And you've also brought up, you're one of the few people I've heard mention that a lot of US veterans are in favor of the operation in Iran as payback for a lot of our service members who were killed in Iraq by the IRGC. So one of the disconnects I see within MAGA and on the right is that we have to engage in geopolitics.
Yes.
Like people like Tucker are like, I just want to sit here like with my hands folded and I'm opting out of an adult situation that someone like Trump has to face and deal with. And we have these like girly men that just want to opt out of it. But what they're doing is just like, they're not facing reality, basically. So is that an American problem, a right-wing problem? Like, how do you communicate that to the base that we participate in the world?
Well, the base is already with us. The base is massively in favor of destroying our enemies. The base, Donald Trump said, "I'm not going to fight these useless forever wars." Okay, he's a Jacksonian. He's going to destroy our enemies, and then he's going to be done with it. He wants to wash his hands of the world to the extent he can. Now, of course, it's ironic. He's redoing the entire post-world order, starting with reorganizing NATO, which doesn't want to be reorganized because it's a sweet deal. They don't do squat, and we pay for it. Taking out long-term enemies like Cuba and Venezuela, and now Iran, so that we can focus on our real enemy, China. He's resetting the whole board. But look, our base is not pacifist. Our base didn't. The thing our base didn't like about Iraq, and Afghanistan is we didn't go in there and kill all our enemies and break them. What they didn't like was this never-ending BS, soft power rule, nation building crap that went on and on and on. Nobody complained during the first 3 weeks of Iran when we went in there and wiped out their army and took Baghdad. Nobody complained about that. They complained with 4 years later, well, we've got a bunch of soldiers there and the enemy's shooting at us, but we've got these rules that say we can't shoot back unless the JAG says it's okay. And, not if it's Tuesday and if they're wearing a bow in their hair. Same thing in Afghanistan. We went there, we conquered the whole country in a month. Nobody complained about that. It was sitting there trying to turn these pederast tribesmen into normal humans. No, we didn't sign in for that. As long as you're killing the enemy, we're cool. And the Iranian mullahs are the enemy. And especially guys of my generation. I was in 9th grade when they took the hostages. I've never forgiven those guys. You can't do enough bad things to the mullahs. And anybody who's stupid enough to think that I can't help anyone who's stupid enough to think that Donald Trump's going to destroy his legacy by allowing a bad ending for this, any ending that doesn't lead to an Iran that basically doesn't screw with us anymore. I think it's just crazy thinking that. A lot of the libertarians are, well, we shouldn't fight. We don't need a giant war machine. We're war pigs. Grow the freak up. The purpose of a government is to make war on your people's enemies. That's the most basic purpose of humans gathering together and forming an organization. It's to kill other humans who want to take what you have. Food, women, land, whatever. And Trump gets that. And most of us get that. And this idea, Trump promised no more forever wars. Hey, stupid, it's not forever war if you win it. So.
Yeah. I find myself living in Southern California, feeling gratitude for the U.S. military so that I can go to yoga class.
Yes.
And go about my business. It's only by virtue of that fact. And nothing
it
else.
is. And it drives these people crazy that this is why I hate libertarians. They want to live in a world of theory, but they can only live in a world of theory when men with guns live in reality to protect them. I know, I was one of them. But I think most Americans feel like you do, which is we understand part of human nature is to make war. I propose we be the strongest.
I agree. And I graduated from libertarianism in sophomore year of college.
I know everybody did. And look, if you don't flirt with libertarianism, I mean,
Yeah.
But eventually you're like, this is stupid.
Yeah. And now you have these adults that it's like the person who comes to your dinner party and stays too long, drinks a little too much, is talking to you too much. You know, that's takes their shoes off.
That's the libertarian. That's the libertarian.
Yeah.
And they never deliver, ever. There's always we should have the libertarian vote. 4%'s going to, Chase Oliver or whatever weirdo it is. You're never going to get them. They're different. They don't want to be like you.
I think it's leftism in the way that it's childish, in the
Yes.
same way that leftism is opting out of the reality of the world.
Yes, it's almost a heresy of Marxism.
Yeah.
But
well, Kurt, thanks so much for joining. Where can people find you?
At Twitter, Kurt Schlichter, and you can also read me every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at Town Hall.
Awesome. And you have a number of books that are all available on Amazon.
15.
Awesome. I've got this one here.
Yeah.
Okay. Kurt, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.